Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Alicia and I'm the owner of Alicia Be Creative. In today's tutorial, we are back with another rhinestone tumbler, but we're going to be rhinestoning a 40-ounce tumbler today. So as you can see, this is the tumbler we're going to be working on today, and it is not quite done, which means that if you're seeing this intro right now, the cup is officially done. It may have taken me 5 to 7 business years to finish, but it is officially finished. And of course, I'm going to walk you through the process of how I put today's rhinestone tumbler together. So of course, all the products I used in today's video will be listed and linked down in the description box down below, as well as any discount codes that I have for you and links to all of my social media platforms to follow me on. Before you go though, be sure to give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. And that's it. Let's go ahead and jump right into today's tutorial. Okay, so I know you guys are probably wondering exactly how I put today's tutorial together, so let's go ahead and get started. So I am starting off with a 40-ounce tumbler that is from my website. I currently now sell links on my website, and 40 ounces are kind of one of the styles that I do sell. I have a few left, not in the color white, but I do have a few ombres left and restock is coming. So the first thing we're gonna do, just like we would for any other tumbler, is we are going to prep this cup. We wanna sand this surface down, and we wanna ensure that we have something for our glue or adhesive for our stones to be able to stick to. So scuffing up the surface with any grit of sand block is going to work. That way we can make sure that our surface is covered and prepped. Next, because we're going to be creating a leopard tumbler in all rhinestones, I went ahead and went to Cricut Design Space and I found a leopard print file that I liked. I enlarged it to fit an entire section of 12 by 12 sheet of vinyl, and then of course I weeded that. You can use any file that you want. I would recommend making your spots larger, not making them super small, because it gets really tedious and cumbersome to need to use really tiny stones on your spots. So I made sure that mine were pretty large. That way it could fit many various sizes of stones on each of the leopard print spots. So place your leopard print however you want to along the cup. I decided I was going to fully cover this in leopard print, so I really didn't leave a whole lot of space, but enough that there will be some differential and color between the leopard print stones and of course the clear or crystal stones we're going to be using. Next, what we need to do is we need to prep our vinyl. Now, you can sand the vinyl on the cup like I'm doing, or you could have just sanded your vinyl sheet before you applied your leopard print. It's completely up to you. I just felt like it'd be a little bit easier to just run my sanding block right back alongside the tumbler when all the leopard print is on, because we need to scuff up the vinyl just like we would the cup so that our glue or adhesive, whatever we're using to adhere our stones, is going to stick nicely and have something to sort of bond to or grip to on our tumbler. So now that this is cleaned up, we can go ahead and get ready to apply our first set of stones. So I'm going to be using Bob Smith's 30-minute epoxy to do all of the rhinestoning for the leopard print spots. You're going to see that I'm going to use something completely different for all of the background stones that sort of surround the leopard print. But for this purpose, I decided to do the Bob Smith 30-minute epoxy for the leopard print spots because I knew that I'd have a long enough working time, number one, but also because I can kind of just do this in short, spurts of time and not really have to worry about too much sliding and things happening or the glue drying on me too quickly, because it gives me enough working time. So knowing that I'm not going to get this leopard print section done in one sitting, I know it's going to take me quite a few sort of times and blocks that I set aside in order to be able to get this fully done. But what I am doing is after I've mixed equally my, pea-sized amount of my Bob Smith 30-minute epoxy just on a sticky notepad, I'm then going to apply that directly to just the leopard print spots. So you really do need to be careful with this, right? I don't want to get glue anywhere that we're not going to rhinestone, because we don't want that glue to create, an uneven surface when we go back to apply our crystal stones. So for the stone color for all of my green spots here, we are going to be using Spring Court Rhinestone Mix. This is a Flint Scissors exclusive mix from Flint Scissors Supply Shop. I have used it before on my channel. It is the most gorgeous, like green, pink, and just gorgeous spring colors that I think of when I think of spring. So we're going to use this for the green leopard print. So I chose green because I felt like the mix matched best with that background of green, but really any of the stone colors you could have chosen to create your background color, whatever vinyl you wanted to choose and use. Definitely making sure to, of course, match your stones to your vinyl. You don't want to do something like yellow with something like this, of course, because you're really going to be able to see that in any of those gaps. And because we're using the scatter method, of course, on our leopard print spots, as we are going to on the entire cup, you're going to pick up any of those gaps if the color underneath is, completely off, okay? So make sure you're picking a vinyl color or your background if you're choosing to just do a solid color to match your stone color, because you're going to get the best look if you do choose to kind of get through and do that step. So this process was extremely tedious. I will tell you that this was probably the most challenging tumbler to create, and not because of the difficulty of creating the design, right? It's just leopard print all in stones, but because this isn't something that you can just sit and do in one sitting, this took me a really long time to finish. So this first initial sort of, section of me just rhinestoning all of the leopard print spots probably took me a good solid week. And of course, I'm not sitting and doing it for, hours upon hours, but I would sit anywhere from 1 to 2 hours and just stone as far as I could get on all of those leopard print spots with my Bob Smith 30-minute epoxy until I either was too tired to continue or my eyes were starting to cross and I needed to take a break. So it is a time-consuming project. This is definitely something that if you're looking for a challenge, I definitely encourage you to do something like this. But if you're someone who likes to get projects done quick, definitely realize that this is not going to be a quick and easy project. So as you can see, I have already finished all the leopard print spots, and I also did do that initial top line, which you guys have seen me do before, but now we're going to get into doing all of the stoning around the leopard print spots. And so now, instead of using my Bob Smith 30-minute epoxy, we are going to be using Flynn Sister Supply Shop Fast Cure. So did you know that you can use Fast Cure as your adhesive for your rhinestones? Well, I'm here to tell you that you can, and you can mix it just like you would for Bob Smith's 30-minute epoxy, just doing your best to measure out, a dot size on your sticky pad and mix it just like you would your Bob Smith. So mixing it until it's thoroughly mixed. It's not going to take you as long as if you were mixing a full batch of epoxy, of course, to put on a cup, but making sure that you are taking the time to thoroughly mix this. Now, remember, this is a fast cure epoxy, right? So you're not going to have the pot life of an artist cure, which is anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the temperature of your environment. This is a fast cure, so you're probably only going to get a good 20 to 25 minutes, I would say, before this really starts to cure up pretty quick. But it does work very comparably for the lifetime of the stickiness of the glue, like a Bob Smith 30-minute epoxy, okay? But the way that this adheres to a cup, of course, is going to be so much stronger than using a liquid fusion or using a crystal glaze glue, because it's just, stronger. It's epoxy, right? It's meant to last. So what I'm now doing after I've mixed up my little bit of Fast Cure on that sticky pad is I'm going to use up that entire dollop that I've mixed, and I'm going to apply this all over to the open spaces around my stones. I am trying to be pretty mindful and careful that I'm not, of course, getting like a lot of pooling anywhere in between the stones or accidentally getting epoxy on the stones that are already placed. You do need to be mindful of that. Not too crazy, but don't go too out of control when you're applying your glue or applying your epoxy and getting, it sort of enough that it's starting to move or pool. We want to do a nice thin layer, not too thin that nothing will stick to it, but not too thick that it's going to start to run on either side of whatever, section of the cup you're working on. So now, of course, is the fun part. Now I get to apply all of the stones, and we're doing scatter method. It's my favorite method. One day, I swear, I'll do a 40 ounce like this and do it all honeycomb. Wow, when I do that, that'll probably take me even longer than this cup, because you guys know how much I definitely prefer scatter method over honeycomb. I'm not sure if I'm up for that challenge yet, but maybe I'll hype myself up enough to get to that challenge. But we're just going to continue to use the crystal rhinestones in scatter mix from Flynn Sister Supply Shop and apply all of the stones to the background. Now, much like the rhinestoning of the leopard print spots, this was not something that I sat and did in one sitting, okay? I will not lie to you, and if you really pay attention to throughout the video, you're gonna see that my nail color changes, I think like 3 or 4 times in this video, and I don't do my nails but every 2 weeks, so that just goes to show you that this took me like a month and a half to finish, start to finish this project, because it is super tedious and cumbersome, right? Like, it's not something that you're going to be able to just finish in record time, right? So this is much like how we would take a custom order for, you know, our epoxy tumblers, right? Making sure that you're giving yourself enough time to create and finish a project like this, especially if you're doing it for a customer, because unless you're someone who can sit in rhinestone, you know, for hours upon hours upon hours, I'm talking about like spending 8 hours rhinestoning a cup. This is not something you're going to get done in a couple of days, okay? So definitely just make sure you give yourself enough time to finish a project like this. Like if you wanted to make something for yourself to go on vacation, don't start this a week before your vacation, because I'm telling you, you're not going to get it done in time unless you are someone who can sit there and rhinestone for 8 hours at a time, which is definitely not myself. So I took probably about a solid three weeks at least to like really make a huge difference, what I felt like, in most of the scatter stoning on the background in the crystal stones, before I was like, yes, I can continue, like I can get this done in a couple of days. You know, when you get like that little oomph, when you just feel like you are so close to the end, this is it right here, was like, yes, I can be done with this in just like a couple of hours. So I'm showing you this section right here because I wanted to show you how I finished off the bottom. So much different than how I start a tumbler with that first initial line. On the bottom, I probably should have taken the time to create a row of stones very evenly placed around the bottom. That way I had sort of that reinforcement of that solid line already dried before I would go in with the rest of the stones to fill in. I didn't do that, so because I didn't do that, I had to really go in and create my own line as I was continuing to rhinestone around the bottom and make it as even as possible. Is it a completely straight line? No. Does that bother me a little bit? Yes. And I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't do the bottom line and row when I did the top line and row, because it would have just made the bottom look much crisper than I feel like it turned out. I feel like it turned out okay. I'm satisfied with it, but I don't love it, if that makes sense. So definitely a tip if you are going to start this kind of a project, do your top and bottom line at the same time, and then just fill everything else in, as you're going through. That way you don't have to worry about creating that straight line at the very end. So now that the cup is done, we're going to let that sit and cure. So just like I would for an epoxy tumbler, that's going to sit and just let cure fully for 3 days, and I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to wash it, nothing. But in the meantime, we're going to get started on this lid, okay? So I've taken out the center straw section, that silicone section where the straw goes in, and I've removed that, and now I'm just taping off the threads here. That way I can spray paint this. So I'm going to spray paint this a green to match the spring court stones that I'm going to use to rhinestone the top of this. So just take it over to my spray tent after I scuff up the surface, because again, we want to make sure that this surface is scuffed up and ready to have that glue and those stones applied to it, and not create an issue where our stones would pop off without having this prepped. So now that that is clean, I'm going to take it to go spray paint it in the spray tent, and then come back and we'll get started on rhinestoning this. So rhinestoning this lid is the same way as I would normally rhinestone any other lid. I personally love to start with the center circle. That's just like the way I've always done lids. I'll start with the center circle here and then just make my way and move my way outward as I continue. I do like to do the lids in one sitting because I am not someone who can do like half of the lid and then stop. A lid doesn't take me any longer than an hour, and I can usually sit and rhinestone something for a good solid hour. And especially when I know I'm almost done, I will push myself to finish that little bit that I have left on a lid, because they're just so much smaller, of course, than a full cup to be able to sit and accomplish. I did, though, while we're watching me sort of rhinestone the lid, I did want to talk about the rhinestone tray that you guys have been seeing in the video. So this is a brand new tray that I got from nukealiclecreations.com. a new website to me. I saw it in a group that I was in. Somebody had a discount code, and I have been looking for a large rhinestone tray that comes with a cover, because when I start rhinestone projects, my silly nilly self always has rhinestones like out all over. If I have a project that I've started with rhinestones, I am someone who just has the tray of rhinestones sitting on the table that I do all of my main work on. And for me, that is just like my way of mentally remembering that I'm working on a project and I have a project in progress. Because if I put those stones away, I'll forget that I'm working on that cup, and it'll take me even longer to finish like a rhinestone project. So I like to kind of keep projects I'm working on out. And so I've been looking for a rhinestone tray that has a lid for like legitimately, I swear to you, forever. And finally, after seeing this in a group, I was so excited to go ahead and purchase this. So it was really pretty inexpensive. It is 3D printed and it's really large, which I love. It also has a contraption, like a little door on one corner of it. So when you are done with the stones that are in the tray, you just flip it over with the lid on and you pull that little sort of door off, and then you can dump your stones right into, you know, the container that you're holding all of the stones in. That way you don't have to sit there and like try and pour them out of the corner and have half of them fall out onto the floor or onto the table, right, as you're trying to carefully get them back into the container they originally came from. So that is definitely something that I love about this. And of course, it's in my favorite color, purple. Like, hello, love purple. That was even better. Purple all day, every day. So it just kind of just matched my aesthetic too, which I absolutely loved. So enough about the tray, but I will link that down in the description box. After I finish, you know, sort of the larger top section, I'm then going to do the exact same thing going around the edges of the lid as well. I always do the edges of the lid last because with any sort of glue, you are going to get a little bit of slide as you're moving around, you know, a circle with the lids. So I'm always constantly going back around with my wax tip pencil to just push those stones back in place until the glue is tacky enough to keep them, to hold them still without having them slide downward, of course, because of gravity. But the lid took me an hour and 10 minutes or so, and then that was it. Once this was finished, of course, I did let the entire tumbler sit for 3 days, much like I would any other epoxy tumbler. And then I took this inside and scrubbed this down with some Dawn dish soap and a scrub brush to scrub up and sparkle all of those stones up. But that is the final look for this cup. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Of course, if you have questions on any part of the process that I showed you today, be sure to leave those questions down in the comments below. You guys know that I will be back again next week for another tutorial, and I hope to see you there. If you love this video, give this video a huge thumbs up, and I'll see you again next week. Bye!